I just want to add my words of welcome to John's, and also to honour that man who is just so incredible and has given himself to the building of ARC in Australia. We are so grateful to you all for your commitment to ARC and for the way in which you have stood in this nation with such strength. When the Australians arrived in London, I can just remember that feeling of you arrived in such strength, and my mind went straight to the Battle of Helm's Deep when the elves arrive, and it's that extraordinary moment of, oh, wow, we have real strength on the pitch. So thank you for all you are doing. We've been so looking forward to being with you and meeting together. And I think we would all acknowledge that we meet at a critical time in our history. This, in the word of a great friend of ours, Os Guinness, is a civilizational moment. Culturally, we are not where we would want to be. We are witnessing the deconstruction of the value system that laid the very foundations of our prosperity. Piece by piece, year by year, new lobby group by new lobby group. This has been facilitated and even enabled by politicians around the world who have either lacked the courage to stand up to this movement, or worse, have actually pushed the deconstructionist agenda. Politically, we are polarized and divided. Socially, we are confused and incoherent. And economically, we have seen stagnation that is worsening by the pursuit of an energy policy which is essentially an act of economic self-harm. I'm not telling you anything that you don't already know, but I do not believe that it is an exaggeration to say that we are at a defining moment. What we choose to do next is critical and requires us to stop and think strategically. More of the same is not going to be okay. There are some who say that there is nothing that can be done, that every civilization has a cycle, and we just happen to be on the downswing. They say first you have the pioneers, characterized by initial outburst of courageous exploration. They're followed by a period of expansion and growth. This leads to development, affluence, and flourishing. This affluence enables wealth, but also sows the seeds of complacency, which over time leads to overexpansion, overcomplexity, and decline. One of the interesting features of this stage is the role of the intellect. There is flourishing knowledge, but little action. And finally, you reach decadence, cynicism, and pessimism that fulfills the decline. That's the civilizational cycle. There are many who believe that that's it. There's nothing that can be done. Or they think and experience that to counter this, to re-pioneer back into the midst of it, is so costly that it's preferable to keep one's head down and just manage the decline. But that's not how we think at ARC. At ARC, we believe the choice is in our hands, and that it is our responsibility not only to tell a better story, but to build a better story. We've studied great movements of history and what sits behind an upswing. We'll hear later from Sir Neil Ferguson, but he calls it the power of dense networks of senior leaders. Others call it the gathering of a creative minority who will live differently. We don't mind what you want to call it. We want to build it. We call it ARC, the Alliance for Responsible Citizenship. It was Winston Churchill who once said, "When one generation no longer esteems its own heritage, and fails to pass the torch to its own children. It is saying, in essence, that the very foundational principles that make it the society that it is are no longer valid. This is where we find ourselves today. But what is required, he said, when this happens, when society has lost its way, is for leaders to arise who have not forgotten the discarded legacy and who love it with all their heart. ARC is about building a dense network of leaders who will arise and who have not forgotten the discarded legacy and who love it with all their heart. We're gathering leaders from across the Anglosphere, which is why we're here today. The Anglosphere is where the woke virus got in. We're gathering leaders from across Europe, including France, where the seeds of the woke virus actually were created, Foucault. We're calling leaders from the Commonwealth nations and from nations who love our foundational values to arise and organize for the renewal of nations. At ARC, we see that the need for action is pressing. I was recently at a talk given by Walter Russell Mead, who is an academic in the US, and he said, I am taking everything that I have and I am blowing my trumpet as loud as I possibly can to say, awake, wake up to the times in which we find ourselves. But we know that it's not only the time to renew our civilization, but that it is possible to renew our civilization. We have studied moments of history. We've asked ourselves the question, what needs to be done? So to do this, we need to restore confidence again in our story. It was Karl Marx who said that if we can keep people from their history, then they're easily controlled. He believed that if you could steal a nation's history, you could steal that very nation. It's time to wake up to what has been happening in our nations and reclaim our story. We need to restore health to our social fabric. We need to release our entrepreneurs to make and to create. We need to honor and respect our energy providers. We need to harness the power of technology to serve and not subvert the human being. To do this, we are building the infrastructure. We are gathering that movement of people, our creative minority, our leaders who love the discarded heritage with all their heart. We're doing this at scale in our stadium event in London in February with 4,000 people gathering. Next year, we will be launching in-country networks to ensure that ARC isn't just about intellectual ideas, but about mobilization and action. We'll be building a digital platform to take our ideas out further and wider, to impact people who will never be able to attend a conference, but who want to come on the journey with us. We're serious about doing this. Ladies and gentlemen, we are convinced we're living at a civilizational moment. We are convinced that we need to be awake and not woke. We believe that decline is not inevitable, but that it rests with us to decide to live differently and build a movement of people who will not bow the knee, but will speak and build with courage and with strength. If we do this, we will be known as those who do esteem our own heritage, those who do pass the torch to our own children. We will be known as those who say that the very foundational principles and experiences that make our society what it is are valid. Thank you.